All right, so I talked about two types of slopes already. We talked about positive slopes and negative slopes. So now we need to talk about two other types of slopes because I had told you there were four. And in order to do that, we need to look at horizontal and vertical lines. So again, I did upload a PDF of this page if you want it. You want to take a moment to print it off. So you can tape it into your notes, or you can just go ahead and pause the video and sketch it. But let's talk about finding slopes of these two lines. So first off, we have, wrong pen, we have this line. So remember, slope is change in y divided by change in x. So I'm going to write my, I'll just write it here to remind you, change in y divided by change in x. So to figure that out, we're going to start with the rightmost value here. We have 2 for our y, or I didn't mean to put a comma, 2 minus the leftmost y value, which is 2. So we have 2 minus 2. And then for our x value, the number that's to this coordinate that's furthest to the right is 3. So we're going to put the 3 there. And then we're going to subtract from that -2. Like that, okay? And now if we simplify, 2 minus 2 is 0, and 3 minus -2 is 5, okay? And then if we divide that out, 0 divided by 5 is 0. And so that is the slope, okay? So by doing that, we've proven that the slope of any horizontal line is going to be 0, because you're never going to have a change in y. If it's staying on this, if it's a horizontal line, it's never going to move on the y-axis, so it will be 0. And so I should have given myself a little more space, but horizontal lines always have a slope of 0. You don't even have to calculate it because you can just know that they always have a slope of 0. So then let's look at vertical lines. What kind of a slope vertical lines have? So we'll do the same thing. We're going to do change in y over change in x for our vertical line here. So to figure out which coordinate comes next with a vertical line, we can't move left or right, so we're just going to use the bottom one as our second coordinate. Or sorry, we're going to use the top one as our second coordinate. All right, so we're going to think of it as moving upward. So we're going to do 1 minus -2. And then on the bottom, we're going to do -5 minus -5. All right, so if we go ahead and simplify that, when we subtract a -2, remember it's like addition, so we'd end up with 3. And then -5 minus -5, that would be like saying -5 plus 5, which would get us to 0. And then to simplify that, well, you can't divide by 0, okay? Dividing by 0 is impossible. We call it undefined. And so we would say then that vertical lines have an undefined slope. They always have an undefined slope because their change in x is always going to be 0, and you can't divide by 0. So the rule is vertical lines always have an undefined slope. Vertical lines always have an undefined slope. Horizontal lines always have a slope of 0. So now I want you to pause the video, and I want you to calculate the slope of this line, a line that passes through these points, and it is either going to be horizontal or vertical, so it's either going to have a 0 slope or an undefined slope. So go ahead and pause the video and calculate that, and then restart to check. Okay, so to figure that out, what you should have done, you didn't even have to graph it. You can just use the points that are listed, and we're going to do change in y over change in x. These are our second most points that we're going to be using. So we're going to do -2, -2 minus 1. And we're dividing that by 3 minus 3. And then when I do that, -2 minus 1 gives me -3. And 3 minus 3 is 0. So, is your slope 0 or is it undefined? You should have said that the slope was undefined, because since you're dividing by 0, which you cannot do, the slope is undefined. And it's a vertical line, so that's why. So that is how you work with calculating slopes of horizontal and vertical lines.